If you're a Carolinian rail fan, the town of Spencer should be on your list. Home to the North Carolina Transportation Museum, this site is a must-visit for any transportation enthusiast, and I consider it non-negotiable for nearby rail fans. It's Saturday, June 21st, 2025, and I was looking forward to exploring the property for myself, arriving on scene just in the nick of time. The day's first passenger train was out the door at 10 a.m. as I quickly got into position atop a pedestrian bridge spanning the museum's right-of-way. Initially shoving north from the station and over a spring switch known as Hatley, the museum's trains operate in a push-pull fashion with some neat, vintage equipment. 2 Norfolk and Western cabooses, plus a company passenger car, one more each from NS and the Southern, and an N&W GP9 would make up this morning's time capsule of a train. Occupying grounds of the Southern Railway's Spencer Steam Shops, the museum makes good use of their abundant trackage by running regular passenger trains across the property. These trains start and end at the Barber Junction Station, which sends trains off for a short run north towards the nearby NS Main Line before veering west at Hatley for a run around the west side of the museum. This brings the trains down towards the south end of the property, from which it's another shove move for Barber Junction with an intermediate stop at the Roundhouse. The ride will take patrons across all 60 of the museum's acres, allowing for views of abundant rolling stock and locomotives, plus the iconic back shop and roundhouse. Although I was exploring on foot, I wasn't any less giddy than those on board, as I had a Norfolk and Western high hood coming my way. Built in 1958 by the Electromotive Division, the 620 is one of 3 remaining operable diesels in N&W lettering. The high hood was donated by Norfolk Southern to the museum in 1985, where she has faithfully served the public for the last 40 years. It was surreal to see an engine with so much history, but I barely had time to calibrate my enthusiasm before train number 2 was underway as Southern FP7 number 6133 began its lap around the property. A total surprise to me this morning, 6133's activity was not part of the regular itinerary. She is instead running at the throttle experiences throughout the morning to celebrate her upcoming 75th birthday, and made for a fantastic treat as I quickly and excitedly got another lens on the beautiful locomotive. Once 6133 had cleared, it was time for me to keep exploring. Less than 10 minutes after arriving, and I'd already seen 2 trains, but hadn't yet made it past the proverbial front gate. Front and center were some of my favorite rail cars, with Southern's Big John, the Atlantic Coast Line's Whopper Hopper, and a set of articulated auto racks. Big John is one of 500 jumbo covered hoppers built for the Southern, stretching 61 feet in length with a maximum load capacity of 205,000 pounds. Big John was the guinea pig of Southern's supersizing experiment, meant to haul more cargo more efficiently. The gamble paid off, saving the railroad and its customers notable chunks of cash, which led to more innovative railcar designs like the articulated Auto Guard, exponentially increasing the ease and amount of which automobiles could travel by rail. The Auto Guard protected its cargo from vandalism and Mother Nature, paving the way towards the modern auto rack and its incredible economy of scale. The Auto Guard was not as successful as Big John and only saw 2 prototypes, with the sister unit badly damaged, while 599000 served the Southern and NS for over 2 decades prior to its arrival in Spencer. Last but not least on the jumbo railcar runway is my absolute favorite, ACL's Whopper Hopper. Completed in 1964, this 6-axle behemoth comfortably transported 300,000 pounds of granular product. Primarily serving customers near Rocky Mount, the Whopper Hopper ran for 36 years under the ACL, SCL, and eventually CSX before being sold for scrap in the year 2000. It was bought by the state of North Carolina shortly following the scrap sale and saw a series of relocations and restorations before finding its forever home at the NCTM. Being a one-of-a-kind railcar, it seems like a marketing gimmick more than anything, with the billboard-style lettering, eye-catching colors, and the laughably smart nickname. The Whopper Hopper is also deep within enemy territory here on the Southern Railway, whose early main line ran from DC to Atlanta, with Spencer being the halfway point. This simple factor, plus a swath of trackside land for sale, solidified the town as part of the Southern's infrastructure, with the back shop being the focal point of Spencer's steam servicing facility. Nicknamed the Be Careful Building, I'll explore it momentarily, but was currently preoccupied as some original Norfolk Southern rolling stock had caught my eye. I figured them a good backdrop for the 10 a.m. train, as the predominantly N&W consist passes a rare Baldwin AS416 painted in colors just as hard to come by. That's what's so cool about living museums such as North Carolina's. You can often find locomotives, rail cars, and artifacts from many fallen flags, most of which were competitors. As somebody who started life long after that of these railroads had ended, it's wonderful to see a variety of old consists, colors, and engine models. Add to it that most everything here is operational, and you've got yourself Railfan Nirvana. With 2 trains simultaneously running the loop, things were busy. 620's hourly trips took about 35 minutes, with the remaining 25 spent at the historic station. That left 6133 to bounce back and forth along whichever trackage was freed up, as I found it next running the west track alongside US 70. This has always been the outermost set of rails at Spencer, providing breathing room for steam engines 60 years ago, and now for the FP7 as some gleeful patrons man the controls. As 6133 was wandering towards the south end, the clock soon struck 11 a.m., and with it a horn salute from Engine 620. The day's second passenger run meant the station platform was available, which saw the Southern FP7 reversing alongside the Be Careful building and under its old gantry crane. Standing on the south side of the back shop, this overhead system was used to perform intrusive maintenance on the Southern's steam engines. As part of the inspection process, the steamers would be shunted underneath this crane with their boiler lifted mid-air while the wheels and running gear remain grounded. The gantry would trolley east and dunk the boiler into a lye pit, absolving it of any unwanted buildup. The back shop performed work on all scales, and I promise I'll get around to what's inside of it, but not before the N&W High Hood found me 50 seconds after 6133 disappeared. I never thought I'd be pressed for time at the NCTM, but welcomed the fun challenge. Sidelined for the weekend, but not overlooked, Southern High Hood number 2601 is the museum's third and final regularly operating locomotive. It had most recently powered a photo freight special and looks immaculate in the railway's tuxedo livery. It was built in 1963 to serve the South and has been with the museum since '92 after NS retired the locomotive. As Engine 620 continued south, I heard 6133 sounding its horn to my back. I had first filmed this engine alongside US 70 at exactly 11 o'clock, and then by the back shop 12 minutes later. 620 had come through 1 minute after that, and now 6133 was dogging him again at 11:15, making for 4 roll-bys in 15 minutes. The crews seemed to enjoy getting their laps in, and I was just as pleased to be witnessing the parade of vintage train sets. When 6133 caught me by surprise this morning, I knew I wanted to take advantage of the abundance in run-bys with as many different angles of the property as possible. With the F unit wandering south, I figured this left me time to relocate, to which I decided on the north side of the back shop. There's a beautiful Atlantic and Yadkin steam locomotive on display, one of the Southern's predecessors, and therefore a great backdrop for the 6133. Built in 1950 for the Southern, the FP7 has served the South all its life in one form or another. Whether on crack passenger trains out of DC or museum throttle sessions, the locomotive is quite well traveled. Equipped with a steam generator for head-end power, the FP7 was a good locomotive option for smaller outfits that ran freight and passenger trains, but didn't have the capital to spring for designated locomotives. Donated to the museum in 1980, 6133 is one of only 5 remaining Southern FP7s. 2 of them run tourist trains around Atlanta's Stone Mountain Park. 2 more are stuffed and mounted at R.J. Corman headquarters in Kentucky, and then there's the 6133. A pure icon, she's the last of her kind in the breathtaking livery that once glistened rails from DC to Atlanta. Even with all the sightings I'd achieved thus far, I still couldn't believe what I was actually witnessing. It is a treat to dream of bygone days while Southern and N&W equipment ply the museum rails, all thanks to the men and women that keep the NCTM operational. As one should, the museum provides numerous glimpses into the past, some working and some on static display. Most of those stationary pieces are housed 180 degrees behind me in the back shop, home to an astonishing amount of time capsule equipment across all modes of transportation. If trains were the lifeblood of the Southern, the back shop was its heart. Covering 90,000 square feet, the 4-track shop quite literally had anything a mechanic and their steam engines could need. I never thought so many lathes could fit under one roof, and would love to have seen this place in its prime. Where living, breathing steam engines once stood, there are now 100-year-old fire trucks and semis, tractors of the future, vintage state trooper patrol cars, and any other piece of automobile memorabilia the museum has gotten their hands on. Continuing south in the shop, you'll find an old aircraft quietly sitting in front of France's Merci train, a symbol of the country's gratitude towards the states following World War II. 49 of these rail cars arrived in New York aboard the Magellan in 1949, loaded with personalized gifts from French citizens. This was a tasteful gesture to show their thanks for America's Friendship Train, which saw 270 boxcars of American-funded food and medical supplies delivered to French citizens in need during the war. 43 Merci train railcars survive today, with each given to a state upon the Magellan's arrival, and North Carolina having kept ours in great condition. Following the French boxcar, there are some more classic trucks, automobiles, and railcars, with the Doris of particular interest. It was once owned by James Duke, a prominent local businessman who founded a certain nearby private university. Moving on from the Doris lies perhaps my favorite attraction inside the back shop, ACL steamer number 1031. I would love to see this beauty under power. I've always thought ACL steam engines look good with their white trim and speedy logo, and seeing them in the Southern shop is one of the reasons the NCTM stands out to me so much. Most museums focus on a particular railroad or moment in time, but there's pretty much one of everything here at Spencer. Whether it flies or floats, whether it's Southern Railway or ACL, chances are you can find it here. Norfolk and Western is part of that melting pot, as I soon found the 11 a.m. train shoving north. Or so I thought. It's right here I realized the train makes a stop at the nearby roundhouse, which left some time to scurry over towards the west track as 6133 was heard to my north. The two Southern Railway flags were quite the cherry on top. Within seconds, I was back at the Be Careful building as the N&W High Hood was continuing the shove towards Barber Junction. Once arrived, they'll lay over until the next departure, scheduled for 1 in the afternoon as to accommodate a lunch break. Time and time again, I could not believe how much was going on. Yet again, 4 minutes separated the 620's passage and another from 6133 on the west track as the student engineer gave the F unit her final revenue run of the day. With 620 tied down for lunch, 6133 was meant to access Barber Junction on the north end in order to not interfere with the parked passenger train. It was awfully interesting chasing trains on foot across the property, and by some stroke of luck, I managed to beat the F unit over to the station, quite chuckled with the amount of success I had had thus far. With a quick layover to end the day, I noticed some interesting markings on the rear end of 6133. While operating for the Southern, this engine was owned by the Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific, a railroad infamous for owning rails and leaving their operations to other companies. What was once the Southern's duty is now that of Norfolk Southern, still evident by the sneaky lettering on FP7 number 6133. Although I can talk about trains until I'm blue in the face, much of the information in this video was learned after the fact. It's a neat facet of the hobby that is sure to keep me educated and has taught me to always appreciate the small things. Just because you don't know something while filming it doesn't mean it isn't cool. What I did know on site was how cool the 6133 was, and that one more shot of the engine was in order as the crew went to stable her up for the day after a fun morning of throttle sessions. With the morning runs brought to a close, I had lost count of the roll-bys they treated me to. A quick roundup afterwards put me at 9 shots plus 2 quick drone clips, simply incredible stats given I arrived without even expecting 61:33. Also unexpected was the invitation extended to me for a ride in the Norfolk and Western caboose, good for 1 round trip departing at 1 p.m. As the saying goes, don't ask why and don't say no. After another hour of moseying around, I was excitedly boarding my ride at the Barber Junction station.
You ever been on one of these before?
No.
Come on in. Go.
Oh my
sit up
gosh.
top in the,
You mind if I take videos?
Sure. Go on. Feel free to take whatever you like.
Thank you.
No sooner than I hopped aboard, the sound of a mainline freight train was heard through the trees. We must not forget that the NCTM sits at a strategic point for the Southern, and therefore neighbors its modern-day main line. Freight and passenger trains had been passing by all day, but I was pleased to be missing them in favor of the museum's railfanning opportunities. I was overjoyed to be here, getting ready to experience my first caboose ride as we departed the station to the rhythmic sound of wheels over jointed rail. Days prior, my lovely girlfriend had gifted me a DJI Osmo 5 action camera, which she hoped I'd get use out of while enjoying my favorite hobby. I brought it along to test at Spencer and was beside myself at how much fun it was proving to casually film the property with. I didn't plan any of this, 61:33, the caboose ride, or having an action camera. But isn't it so pleasant when things fall into place? Thoughtfully assembled, the passenger train was the perfect length for 620 to clear the Hatley switch without fouling Norfolk Southern's trackage. This allows the museum to run at their leisure and independently of the Class 1. An operational museum is rare enough, but the NCTM seems to be in a league all its own. Stopping at Hatley, I realized this wasn't just any turnout, but rather a spring switch set to the diverging direction. This means as cars roll over from the through track, or the direction we just came from, the switch bounces back to the diverging alignment, negating the need for it to be thrown. These switches are common on turnouts where directional traffic takes certain routes, like here at Hatley, and I believe this is the first one I'd seen. Throughout the morning, I was enamored with 620's air horn, which somehow sounded even better as I now found myself listening from the caboose. With 620 now up front and having crossed the museum's entrance, we pass underneath the signal cantilever and pedestrian bridge that began my day. Behind these landmarks is a short 2% grade that climbs around the parking lot and supersized rail cars, followed by some more notable rolling stock that I haven't yet touched on. First up is the 200,000th rail car to pull off of Pullman's assembly line in Bessemer, Pennsylvania, built for the Southern just like almost everything else around here. The railway bought roughly 1/5 of the rail cars Bessemer produced, so it's only fitting that the milestone rail car honor the occasion. Adjacent to car 550555 is a North Carolina Ports GE 45 tonner, completed in 1943 and serving the Wilmington shipyards, which eventually became the town's seaport and kept the engine busy. In 1977, it sold for $100 to the state, landing promptly at the museum. I've spent plenty of nights inside the cabooses of Folkston, Georgia, but the experience is totally different in motion. It's very cool to think how many miles this rail car has accumulated, hosting railroad employees for decades all across the N&W system to safeguard their trains. Having wandered from the regularly accessible part of the property, the passenger train takes guests alongside a string of rail cars that have certainly seen better days. A couple of these are even lettered for the museum, but I was most fascinated by the NCTM's Railroad Wrecker. I'm not alone in saying these cranes were a childhood favorite, and it was way cool to see one in person. Making our way away from the museum, it's not long until we reach the south end of trackage. Similar to the switch at Hatley, this too is a spring switch, aligned for the through position. It allows for another quick change in direction as we head back north and away from the adjacent NS main line. Shoving north for Barber Junction, the engineer is left relatively blind in the cab of 620. That's where Zach comes in, the brakeman on board today's train. On staff for roughly 5 years, he keeps a watchful eye during these long runs in reverse, and unsurprisingly noticed the railfan stalking his train earlier in the morning. It takes one to know one, and it's Zach I have to thank for the invitation to this afternoon's best seat in the house. He also possesses a wealth of knowledge about the museum's rolling stock and presents it quite eloquently, so I'll let him do the talking as the two of us re-entered museum grounds.
That's the Clinchfield 100, a business car, turned into a table car by the Watauga chapter of the National Railroad Historical Society, who still owns the car.
What's a table car?
Basically a dining car. It doesn't have a full kitchen. It has the original kitchen from when it was a business car, but it's pretty much just a dining car.
Okay.
This caboose right here, this Winston-Salem southbound, was restored a couple years ago.
It's beautiful.
It's our newest, well, our second newest caboose. We have a southern caboose over there that we just finished restoring earlier this year, as well as these two hoppers right there we just restored this year.
Wow. I can't get over those E units.
Oh, they're definitely something. 501 is my personal favorite engine here with the slope nose. It's got the oscillating Mars light on the top.
Does it really?
Yes, that engine is very historic. It's the most traveled E unit in the country, logged over 6 million miles. And it ran between DC and Miami.
As we rolled back onto campus, I was afforded a rail-side view of my favorite engines on the property, Southern E8 number 6900 and ACL E3 number 501. The two engines have been staged outside the famous roundhouse as roof repairs are underway, and luck would have them back-to-back in a very viewable location. Built in 1951, the 6900 was part of an 18-unit order from EMD and was used exclusively for high-priority passenger trains across the system. The latter half of 6900's career saw her pull the flagship Southern Crescent, a duty that came with complimentary nose heralds, which take the engine's look to the next level. Also sporting dedicated markings is ACL 501, rolling off EMD's factory floor an astonishing 84 years ago. Supplementing the popular F-Series locomotives, EMD's E units were designed specifically for passenger service, with the E3 being the first mass-produced iteration. 501 was one of two on the ACL's roster, assigned to the railroad's champion passenger trains between New York and Miami. The E3s are most easily identifiable by their long, angled noses, a unique aesthetic that looks sublime in ACL's purple and silver livery. As Zach noted, the 501 is America's most traveled E-unit, with more than 6 million miles under its trucks and equipped with a gyrating headlight to top it all off. I had never seen an E-unit before this, so the sight of two back-to-back prototypes was delightful. As if their history isn't impressive enough, both the 6900 and 501 are still operational. NCTM runs the 6 axles on rare occasions, but their high-speed gearing does make it difficult to operate along the restricted speed property. While clearly stealing the spotlight, the E-units are but a drop in the bucket of rolling stock on display, complete with another wrecker and numerous interesting locomotives, cabooses, passenger, and freight cars. This entire outside assortment was assembled due to the roundhouse roof repairs, but I was quite pleased as I enjoyed viewing everything alongside each other. The Spencer Turntable and Roundhouse needs no introduction, hosting numerous popular events, including 2012's assembly of Norfolk Southern's Heritage Fleet and Streamliners at Spencer 2 years later. As with the rest of the property, it is very cool to ponder the stories this turntable could tell.
Polar is the biggest. About right now is more of a slower time. We have smaller events, but Polar has gotten us where we are.
Okay,
we owe
really?
To Polar. It has been a huge thing for the museum, and it's a lot of fun to put on too.
I can imagine.
Visitors love Polar Express. It's a very magical experience.
After stopping at the roundhouse, Zach led the train alongside the back shop as we closed in on the station. Once off board, I set back up by the southern silos for the final view of the day, as N&W 620 was quick to depart with the 2 p.m. train in tow. Even if it was my last chance to do so, I was happy to achieve an aerial pace of the historic train. Raising my eyebrows all day long, I am still unsure as to the purpose these southern silos served. My best guess is water storage, as this was a steam shop, but either way, I thought they made a nice addition to the landscape. I had amassed 16 run-bys throughout the day, with 9 of the 6133 and 7 of 620. This was, of course, in addition to my awesome caboose ride, all of which was complemented wonderfully by the museum's impressive collection of static rail cars, locomotives, airplanes, semis, fire engines, and more. I was privileged to experience all this great history firsthand, and am very much looking forward to my next trip to Spencer. Thanks for railfanning with me today, and thank you NCTM for keeping transportation history alive and well in the Tar Heel State.